Hi there, I'm Von and Ruzive.
Hi, I'm Peter Jeun Ho Tsang,
And
we're
we're
the
the
co-authors
co-authors
of
of
Fashion
Fashion
Tech
Tech Applied.
Applied.
So the idea of this book really came about through our work together, Peter and I, with fashion tech startups who are having technological solutions for fashion brands. What fashion tech is really just implementing technology into the fashion industry through various ways. And in this case, through the whole supply chain of the fashion industry. And many people don't actually know what that means. So normally we find ourselves having to explain what that is. And that is really how this book has been inspired, in order to really just educate individuals on what that is, what is fashion tech, and how can it help fashion brands, fashion corporates, and just the fashion industry in general to be much better and really reach its full potential.
Our work has spanned across fashion tech startups, academia by delivering workshops and programs, and also into research on the subject matter as well. As Von said, the term is very broad, so this book is our chance to put onto paper our lens, our perspective on what does technology mean for the fashion industry. So Fashion Tech Applied takes you through 6 chapters uncovering the fashion value chain, right at the start with design and product development, the middle of the supply chain and production, and then the downstream phase, including marketing, retail, and the end of life. This book features a whole host of technologies, including AR, AI, digital fashion, NFTs, virtuals, and even more.
Well, if we start off with the benefits, the 3 terms that we usually go by are being cost efficient, time efficient, and being sustainable. And really, if we just start off with the cost, it's just the idea that instead of having to ship the physical items, maybe technical packs to manufacturers across the world, this time you can actually just send it electronically, because you would have everything done digitally through some of the technologies that we've mentioned in the book, such as AI, for example. And here we also have time efficiency. So instead of having to create a whole collection of samples to approve with just the physical materials and fabrics, this time you can actually do that all digitally through digital design, for example. And this means you are making digital garments instead of having to make the physical ones. So you're really not having to commit to a fabric that maybe you're not so sure about, because these digital garments really look, they're very hyper real. So in this case, you are seeing what it will potentially look like when it's physically made in the future before committing to anything. And lastly, we have sustainability, where we do need to kind of look after our planet. And in this case, fashion is known to be one of the most polluting industries. So it's really about how can technology contribute to that, so that it can lower that status of being super polluting.
And then I would also add on to that optimization and accuracy. So for example, in chapter 3, we do talk about lay panning, which helps the user to understand how much fabric they need to create a garment, or it could be about understanding how much stock you have in your warehouse, or surplus stock of unsold stock. For example, we talk about that with fines, or right through to the end of the fashion value chain with retailing, knowing exactly what your customers want and wear, and hopefully optimizing your retail experience a lot better. It's about enabling digital workflows and digital practice into your everyday life. And for brands, hopefully it's going to start helping you to create new ways of doing business and connecting all of those dots together on the fashion supply chain.
Now, obviously, with everything we've discussed, there are some challenges. One of them being, from the work that Peter and I have done, that it is still quite an untapped market, really, to make mainstream. And what I mean by that is fashion brands don't often know all of these benefits. So we do need to write books like these and just educate decision makers and just individuals working in the fashion industry to understand the real potential that technology has on fashion. And also we have things such as development. When you're actually developing these technologies, it can be quite complex. So it's really about taking time, testing, and just making sure that these really do optimize fashion the best way they can. It's funny that this question has been asked because that's exactly how we end the book, with the final chapter focusing on the future of fashion tech and what is really the full potential. So we end with the must-haves, so the must-have technologies that fashion brands should really tap into, and those are the technologies such as seamless checkouts, for example, in physical stores. As we noticed, brick and mortar or physical shopping is actually very popular still, so we need to obviously make that still modernized in a way that is more efficient, you know, kind of all those benefits we mentioned earlier, and actually benefiting the brands as well as the customers. So just making that a little bit more seamless is what we're saying. And this is just one example of the must-haves, but for the nice-to-haves, those are the technologies that maybe they're just nice to have, but maybe aren't one of the main priorities compared to adopting some of the other technologies that we've mentioned throughout the book. And this includes things such as AI making design speedier. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, for example, with generative AI, as this is specifically what we discussed in the design phase of the supply chain, and how this maybe is nice to have as kind of like an assistive tool.
And fashion tech will only get faster and faster as new hard tech and soft tech come onto the market. It means there's a lot of opportunities there to be had. For fashion brands and retailers, it means that you're going to be able to, for example, create even better consumer experiences, as well, of course, future-proofing your business for the future as well. If you're an individual reading the book, we want to inspire you. How can you potentially adopt technologies into your everyday practice within fashion? And how can you be a little bit more adventurous there? Some of the trends that excite myself and Van are, for example, AI and how it will be affecting the entire design phase within the near future, but also in the long term as well. And with new hardware such as the Apple Vision Pro coming onto the market, things like virtual stores, virtual worlds, digital fashion, and immersive experiences will only get even bigger and better. And it'll be interesting to see there how mixed reality will come into play with technologies such as that. But ideally, the book is there for you so that you know where you can experiment and be inspired. And each chapter has a little activity and a checklist for you to think about.
Make sure you get your copy
now.